All right. Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium live here on Twitch. My name is Emily. I am that little puffin icon that you see up in the top corner. I am the one with the beautiful red Jacques Cousteau-esque beanie there in the middle. I'm part of our social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And we're going to play some Animal Crossing this afternoon, although, of course, never alone. I've got my friend, my colleague, my coworker, Patrick, also on the social media team there in that black hat on screen. He's that Mola Mola icon that you see up in the top left corner there. Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
That's me. I'm spinning around here on Mola Mola Island. I am so excited for this stream because we are back where
We're back.
left off here, Emily, on Monday when we melted Twitch with how
Twitch.
amazing our live stream was about to be. With team water quality, and you may have noticed, folks, that we have an extra special guest. It's not just Ricketts and Monterey. No, we have a very good friend joining us here on Mola Mola Island on Montery Bay Island.
Yes,
Hello.
we have team water quality.
Woo!
Again.
It's team water quality.
It's team water quality. Yay.
Let's get some W's in the chat, everyone. Let's get some
We
W's.
did it. We got them here. We got them to Mola Mola Island on Monterey Bay Island.
That's right. There's Chris, everybody. Say hi to Chris. Thank you so much for being here, Chris, this afternoon. We also have joining us on the phone Kasie and Hannah as well. Hey, Kasie and Hannah.
Hello. So nice to see all of you here.
Already the first
Nice.
pun of the stream there.
Well, thank you for having us back, even though we melted the stream last time.
You did such a great job. Just too good of a job. Blathers couldn't even handle it.
No, it bugged him too much.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
My Lord, the puns. It's amazing.
Yeah, can we get let's get some puns in the chat. I know that. Booyah.
There we
Pun
go.
count 3. We're
On
there.
count 3.
Okay,
And yes,
Emily,
for
I'm
those
gonna
of you
go
who are
tweet-
just
I'm gonna
tuning
go
in,
tweet
it
that
just
we're live.
started.
Take it away.
Yeah. So I see lots of folks asking, did they miss much? No, we just started. We just introduced our 3 special guests for this afternoon stream. We've got Kasie, Hannah, and Chris all joining us this afternoon. Once again, we got them back on stream. Hopefully we won't break Twitch this time. And hopefully we'll be able to go on a little tour of the Monterey Bay Island Museum and Aquarium and learn a little bit about what it takes to take care of an aquarium behind the scenes. What's going on with all the water and stuff there. So we're really excited. We're excited to be here. We're on the little Mola Mola Island right next to our museum here today. All right. Yeah, it's lots of people just water quality hype in the chat right now. Exactly. We are hype as well. Patrick's tweeting. Okay, he's moving though. He's back.
We tweeted. We're
We
back.
tweeted.
I've got both
We're
thumbs
back.
ready to move about here. This team water quality stream, and we did just want to shout out very quickly just how amazing the response was to team water quality and also team water quality. Just how great you were in answering everyone's questions. We had questions about anti-worming to use in water. We had so many different questions already. But I think what we should do before anything else happens is we should think about maybe running on over to the aquarium. And Chris, you can tell us a little bit
Yes.
about what your work is like at the moment. We can see that you've got some PPE on, some personal protective equipment. You were at the aquarium earlier today, right?
I was making sure that we had our basic water checks done for the day. Kasie, who's my boss, fortunately let me come home a little early to make sure I can get my switch ready to go.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kasie.
I wanted to take you up this.
Absolutely. I mean, this is
way.
important here. And yeah, Hannah and Chris are both super integral to our work at the aquarium and keeping our water healthy. And of course, we need time to share it with everybody. I mean, come on, water quality, guys, right?
Absolutely. Water
Exactly.
quality is where it's at. Team water quality, one of the first memes that showed up on our Animal Crossing streams right off the bat. And so, Chris, I saw you earlier today at the aquarium. with that PPE, walking around, doing some rounds. Can you tell us, currently on the ground there, Emily did a great job. She put the logo there of the aquarium on the ground.
I made
Very
our
impressive
logo.
there.
I did the little floor design here. I was very excited to show you this last time, but then Twitch crashed before we got here. So I'm excited to show it to you now. We've got our logo outside the building just like in real life now. So we've got that going on. We've got a little ammonite fossil over here representing mollusks, of course. And we've moved the museum into this new location. And I kind of designed it, Patrick. I don't know if you noticed, so that we have the staircase over there leading down into what I kind of have decided is our great tide pool. So I
love it. We've got a mola in the great tide pool.
Yes.
We do have a staircase that does come down to the rocky intertidal in real life, and just want to point out that the next time you are here in Monterey along Cannery Row, we do have a giant kelp logo. That is the Monterey Bay Aquarium logo. That is the growing whorl of giant kelp there, and we actually have it there in real life there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
by the way, Dory Diver in the chat, that's Kasie. So yeah,
yay,
hey,
Kasie.
He's in the chat. So Chris, so when you show up to the aquarium, it looks a lot like this. What is step one of team water quality at the aquarium?
Well, step one is kind of what I do every day. Is I go around and I collect some samples from each of the exhibits we have at the aquarium. Overall, I can't do the whole aquarium in one day because there's a lot of stuff to do here. But usually we sort of divide up our exhibits based on how stringent we need to be with the water. So we have some that we have to test every week, some that we have to test every couple weeks, and some we only have to do once a month or so. So I'll go get my list of the exhibits to go sample from, grab my sets of bottles and my probe, and go off and go visit all the exhibits around the aquarium.
That's awesome. So what time does your day typically start?
It's usually between 7:30 and 8, so not too early, but it gets me out of the house and gets me down. I'll ride my bike down to work, and
that's awesome.
It's
Very
wonderful.
good.
And hey, we got another subscriber. Thank you so much again.
Whoa.
I know that we mentioned it last stream right before everything crashed and died, but hey, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our channel over the last week. It's been so heartwarming and just really, really cool and really awesome to see all those subs coming in, and we appreciate it so much. We just submitted some of the emotes today to Twitch, so hopefully those are going to get approved soon, so that you will have those rewards, those incentives there that you can use in the chat.
Oh, we've got more subs coming in right now. We should keep Hype Train coming.
Hype Train!
What does a Hype Train mean, Emily? I don't know what that means.
It means that we had a whole bunch of subs very, very quickly, and we're going to try and get to the next level of Hype Train, which we just did.
We just did. Hype Train, everybody. Let's hop on board the Hype Train. Choo-choo. We're leaving the station. Let's sub to the Monterey Bay Aquarium right now. If you want to know what's going on under the water, you need those subs. And we need those subs here on Twitch as well. Let's get this going. Look at everybody hopping on. This is amazing. Hype Train at 50% level 2.
This is very exciting.
This is great. I'm going to run around in circles if we can get past hype level. Oh, we're doing it. I'll keep running in circles. We're at 70%, everybody. I've never seen this before. I have no idea how Twitch works, but this is fantastic and very exciting. Look at it go. We got marbles, gifting subs left and right.
Gosh.
We did get a coelacanth. Let's get Let's get we're at 99%, everybody. Hype Train level 2. We left the station.
We did it.
We've got the Hype Train filled up with sardine subs from the Cannery Row, and we're shipping them out to the rest of the world. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. And Marvel's just gifting subs away like it's nobody's business. We had Muffins gifting subs before. Oh, now we have oh my gosh, I'm not gonna pronounce this right. Slithy code? I'm gonna go with that. I'm sticking to my guns there. Slithy code gifted a sub too. Oh my gosh.
This is amazing. Yeah, we're getting gifted subs handed out like they're sustainable seafood, and this is really an incredible thing to watch. Chris is running around in shock, I would imagine, at what's going on right now in chat. Around and around he goes, the kelp logo, everybody. Wow, this is
And
very
I saw
exciting.
a couple of folks asking if we can make the QR codes available to have a logo in front of your museum too in Animal Crossing. And I
Absolutely.
think that we should be able to do that. We have access. We have the Able Sister shop now, so we should be able to do that.
We're on a level 3
yeah.
hype train, Emily. I'm going to keep
We're-
fishing for subs here until we get to
we're
level 4.
72% of that hype train there. That's okay though. Well, Patrick, I know that you're gonna keep on fishing.
I'm fishing
There.
for subs. I don't know what y'all are doing.
while
I was trying to upgrade. I was 100%. There it is.
There
We
you
just
go.
got what are
There you
bits,
go.
Emily? Explain to me what bits are.
We'll talk about bits later. But I
Okay.
have this present for you, because it'll complete your Ed Ricketts look. So go ahead and pick that up on the ground.
Oh, hold on. I was trying to update our Instagram story.
Oh, I know. We're multitasking right now.
Okay, hold on. Where did that go?
It'll look like little glasses in your inventory. They're not glasses, though.
I can't change clothes while I'm transformed. What does that mean?
So it means
are
you're
you
wand
using
to
your
put on
fish
clothes.
wand?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Avi's
How do I-
gifting subs now too.
How
At
do I
Fruit Bat is
unwand?
gifting subs. Oh my
Oh, no.
gosh. I'm
Emily. Emily, I don't think I have any
I,
clothes.
I have to move the camera away.
I don't think I have any clothes to put on the beard. I'm sorry.
I think we better get inside quick.
Oh, good lord. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
my gosh, I
everyone.
had to move the camera away. We don't have a
Hype
sensor
train-
bar
Hype
yet.
train level 5. Can you please upgrade to level 6 to get us out of this particular predicament? Oh, goodness gracious. I'm sorry, everybody. I didn't realize I had no clothes on.
Patrick, we can't
Although-
show that kind of content on Twitch. This is a clean channel. Come on.
Although, what I will say, everyone, is that Ed Ricketts was known to be a little bit of a vagabond and walked from Chicago down to Tennessee, I believe, several hundred miles, sleeping on the side of the road. So not uncommon for Rick Etz to find himself in such a state of disrepair. But my apologies there. I had my Dory wand and I
We do
suddenly
have rules at
became
this
unclothed.
aquarium, Patrick.
Hype, 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 everybody. We're at 131%.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. I can't handle that right now.
This is incredible,
Oh wow.
everyone.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, Patrick and I, we just got finished with our deep sea talk with Dr. Jim Barry from Mbari a little while ago. So we got the back-to-back streams today, and if you can't tell, we've gotten a little loopy. So
It's gonna be
it's
a
worth
loose.
it.
This is gonna be a
It's gonna
loose
be
stream,
great.
everybody. I can hear Hannah and Kasie muting their microphones, walking away from the computer in the
Oh
background.
no! Oh no!
Okay, you can leave the talking to us at least.
All right.
This is fantastic. Jeez. This is what you guys do with media. I get it now.
But I changed my work uniform at least. So
Oh, there we go.
Let's go. Okay,
That's
there you go. We
wonderful.
got Chris.
That's
back. Yeah,
official.
there are no.
Oh!
I
Look
love
at
it.
Chris's work attire, looking good over there.
All
oh
right.
My goodness.
Well,
What's
you're in
this?
your work attire. I think it might be time to head into work then, right, Patrick?
Yeah, you know what? I'll put shoes back on. I guess I don't know how to do outfits. I'm just gonna go back to Rick Etz over here and hide my shame. Here, actually, I'm just gonna go down to the ocean real quick and think about what I've done. No, let's go. Let's go into the museum. Let's follow Chris in.
There we go.
Oh goodness
Oh
gracious.
goodness.
So I
Oh,
gotta
wow.
say, Blathers, we give him a hard time for what he does, but Blathers either has to have a really good team of people of employees we never see who take care of this place, or he just is running around
Yes.
driving himself crazy taking care of the animals, especially in his aquarium. 'Cause
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of work to keep our animals healthy.
Yeah. Expand on that for a few minutes here while I upgrade or update the aquarium's Instagram story. Let them know that we're live on Twitch. Emily and Chris, go for it.
Yeah, so we have an amazing crew that's working behind the scenes at the aquarium all the time. You have folks thousands of people who will visit the aquarium in a single day, and you'll see tons of people out on the floor interacting with guests, answering questions. You'll see Patrick and I running around taking pictures, doing Instagram stories, doing live streams, you name it, when we're open. But then behind the scenes, there's an enormous crew who are working tirelessly to make sure that all of our animals in our collections are staying healthy, that they're staying safe, and that all of the exhibits are looking beautiful as well. So all that hype and that standing of Team Water Quality, we are 1,000% with you there, because without you, we wouldn't have the aquarium. It wouldn't be the aquarium that it is today. So just so much love and so much respect for all of the work that you guys do behind the scenes that, you know, when folks are looking at the exhibits, most of them don't think about. You know, you have people like me who have a background in chemistry who absolutely just stand there and think about all those things, or the people that I've trapped on tours in the basement of the building to talk about water quality with, that get very scared when
The
we
basement's
start.
actually a pretty cool thing to talk about. We should make sure we bring that up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about the basement today. We're going to talk about what it takes to take care of an aquarium today, and have a little bit of fun exploring our Monterey Bay Island Museum. So we're so excited to have you here on this journey with us this afternoon. Chris, Kasie, Hannah, do you have anything that you want to add?
I just saw something in chat there. If someone was mentioning, do we have engineers at the aquarium? And we definitely do.
Yeah.
Basically, if you think of our aquarium, we're really kind of a water processing plant with a bunch of fish on top. We have a ton of pipes going through the aquarium, several miles worth of pipes, maybe almost 50 miles or more.
Wow.
And we need people who know how to install those and take care of them and clean them out, which is one of the things actually we were going to bring up last time, just as the stream crashed.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everything's looking good today. I have an entirely new setup that we're testing out, and knock on wood, everything is going to run smoothly today. I've been running it as a test since about noon, and so far everything's looking good. So hopefully at least on my part, things won't explode the way that they did last time. I can't promise anything for Twitch itself, though. So we'll keep things running here. Chris, should we head on over to the aquarium?
Absolutely.
All right, after you.
Do it. We're back. Instagram story is updated.
Woo!
Why don't we go
Welcome.
up into the saltwater area to start with here?
All right.
That tends to be where I spend most of my day, at least.
Off we go. We've got some interesting background noises as well coming in from Team Water Quality somewhere.
Yeah. I did see in the chat there someone asking about the emotes to go with the subscriptions, and yes, absolutely. We just submitted some emotes today to Twitch to get approved, so those should hopefully be showing up shortly. I know it usually takes a couple of days for Twitch to approve those, so fingers crossed. The next time we do an Animal Crossing stream, you should have
Emily.
those emotes
So
there.
Captain
Yeah?
Halibut is asking us, do we have a puns emote?
Oh my goodness, we sure do.
You're darn tootin' we have a puns emote.
Hey.
Hey.
And Drusif, yes, it's happening. We finally have emotes for you. I know that you've been asking for the last month, and I can finally tell you, yes, they are
Yep.
coming.
Absolutely. They're going to be punderful.
Oh,
They're going to be, we're going to release them to ponderous applause. Yeah, it's going down.
All right. Well, Chris, we are here. We are in this beautiful saltwater habitat. Looks like there's a little bit of kelp down there. We've got these beautiful fish swimming around. But right now, looking here, what would be your typical day at the aquarium to make the water this clear and beautiful, and testing that to make sure that everything's looking good?
Well, of course, you got to make sure you know where our water's coming from to begin with, because we're pumping our water in directly from the Monterey Bay. So if Blathers here has his aquarium, you got to wonder where he's getting his water from. Hopefully he's pumping it right out of the ocean that's right there, but if not, he's got to be making all this water himself. because that's a lot of water in here.
Which
And
let's
can
talk
you
about
make your
that
own
real quick.
seawater?
Yeah.
You can indeed. A lot of aquariums around the world, like that are not happen to be right next to the ocean or at a location that doesn't have really great seawater, do have to make their own water. For example, the Georgia Aquarium. They're a pretty massive place, and they have that huge exhibit with those whale sharks in them, and they're making all their own seawater every day. So I'm rather glad that we can just pump ours in because the Monterey Bay has such consistently great water all the time.
Yes.
That's so great. Yeah, go for it, Emily.
No, I was just going to say it takes a lot of work to make your own seawater too. It's not just dump this into this, stir it around, and there you go. They're, bringing in huge pallets of something called Instant Ocean, which is basically like a powdered ocean. It's not just like, grabbing some iodized salt out of the cabinet at home and putting it in seawater. Seawater is much more complex than that. So we're really fortunate to be able to pump in the water straight from the bay. It already has all of the different minerals and nutrients and stuff already right there in it. And you have such, incredible access to that healthy, clean seawater because we're in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. You have other aquariums that are also on waterways that could potentially bring in water straight from the ocean, but oftentimes the water around them is polluted or just not clean enough to be able to do that. So we're really, really lucky to be on the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary here and to be able to bring that in.
Yeah, and of course, all that fresh seawater comes with so much life with it as well. And that's one of the reasons our exhibits could look so wonderful without us putting in quite as much work as maybe some other locations might, is because a lot of stuff's coming in and just setting itself up there, making their own homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those invertebrates that come into the aquarium that settle everywhere. Certainly something that I'm, as a volunteer diver at the aquarium and going in there and trying to clean that stuff off, you start seeing all of these things growing, algae and everything that's coming in from the water that's coming in directly from the bay. There was a question, and I think we can maybe throw this to our remote team water quality or to Chris and then to Hannah and Kasie. But we have a question from Celestina Kitty. What are some of the biggest challenges with ocean water and aquarium water generally? What are some of the biggest concerns that you have thinking about your water every day? Maybe go to Chris and then kind of move that around. Yeah, go for it. Or Kasie, go for it. I heard you.
Jump in because I have that noted right now. It's like, oh, we got to answer this question. So that was an excellent question.
Yeah.
And I've actually worked in this case, you guys. I've worked in both aquariums that have their own water, like Monterey Bay, and ones that have had to mix them up. And one of the biggest challenges with ocean water versus aquarium water is just what you get with it. So with the ocean water coming in, a lot of times we don't know until we come into work in the morning at Monterey, what's our pH of our incoming water? What are the nutrients looking like? Do we have plankton blooms happening out there? What's coming in? So it's always, you're kind of on your toes all the time going, okay, what do we got today? What's the new problem we have to solve? Which makes it really exciting and challenging. And then with aquarium water that you have to mix up, sometimes you just don't know what's in the ocean water that may not be in the salt that you're using. And there are things we don't know about the chemistry. And so, you try to raise sensitive animals like jellies sometimes, and there may be some really minor element or something at a really low level that you may not be able to test or add to the water that might be in the natural ocean water, but may not be in your salt makeup. And you have to figure out a way to supplement that. And so there are just different challenges in each area. I think it makes it all very exciting.
That's awesome. And speaking of those surprises or different things in the water, I know, Hannah, you were mentioning on Monday that we were starting to see, forgive me, I think it was phosphorus. What were you finding in the water that was letting you know that upwelling might be happening? Because I was diving a little bit earlier at the aquarium, and the water seemed a little bit chillier to me. That could have just been, that particular day, but you can kind of tell what's going on in the ocean from what you see inside the aquarium, right?
Yeah, we sure can. So last time we were doing this, we talked about how Chris and I test the nutrients in what we call raw water. So that is just water from the Monterey Bay that is unfiltered and untreated, and it comes in at night. And we do filter that and clear some of that out for the daytime, so guests can see through the water into the exhibits. However, that raw water is giving us an indication of what's going on out in the Monterey Bay. So we picked up a little bit of phosphate in our raw water last week. Yeah, so it's coming up. The deep ocean is really nutrient rich, and so something that's unique about this aquarium is we get to see those seasonal fluctuations in that water. And so the fact that we saw some phosphate in the water tells us that we have a little upwelling event happening, which means that deep nutrient rich ocean water is coming up to the surface and it's coming into our aquarium. And go ahead.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we had a lot of people that were asking what is upwelling, and that is one of those things that we have to deal with that other places don't. It's a feature of the west coasts of most continents, where with the spinning of the earth and the wind that blows seasonally, the water gets blown away. But as you all know, water is pretty sticky to itself, and you don't just have like a standing wave of wind. Blown water, and then the water gets shallower away from where the wind is. The water's all connected, so if the surface layer moves away, then something comes in behind it. And like you were saying, that's that nutrient-rich water that's a little bit deeper, and that happens seasonally here in the Monterey Bay.
Patrick, I do have to just interrupt because I saw my new
please
favorite joke in chat just a moment ago because someone asked, "What's upwelling?" And another person responded, "Nothing much. What's upwelling with you?"
Oh, that's... Oh my goodness.
Delightful.
I've certainly had a few things upwelling with me depending on how much of it I ate, but no, that's great.
So, Patrick,
did I just kill the joke? I'm sorry, everyone.
Would you say that upwellings are a windfall?
Oh, yes, they are. Let's get it. Team water quality puns count double, everybody. Let's go. That was awesome. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Yeah, so Hannah, sorry to interrupt with all of those puns, but so yeah, upwelling, something that happens seasonally where that cold water comes up with those nutrients like you were mentioning there. A lot of people were wondering what that upwelling was.
Yeah, and it's not just nutrients either. There's a lot of physical changes. For instance, the deep ocean water is a little bit lower in oxygen concentration. So we have 24-hour 365 monitoring of our physical parameters of our water here. And that's a throwback to that question earlier about engineers. Here we do employ a variety of engineers, but a couple of them are called control engineers, where they set up all of the instrumentation and 24-hour monitoring and feedback and of all the different things going on in the aquarium. So we know when we come in the day, what concentration of dissolved oxygen is coming in with that water, which is another indicator of upwelling. So we see a little bit lower oxygen concentration, and because that water goes through all of our exhibits and then right back out to the Monterey Bay, sometimes we have to supplement with a little bit of extra oxygen. So we will bubble in oxygen into certain exhibits so that those animals and plants in those exhibits are meeting their oxygen demand.
Now, kind of
That's
along
awesome.
those
Thank you.
lines, are there any exhibits that just normally need more oxygen in them at the aquarium?
Yes, definitely. Cephalopods specifically, we make sure that we are providing at least 90% saturated oxygen to our giant Pacific octopuses. Schooling fish love to suck the oxygen out of the water as well. So we have some schooling fish systems. You've seen the Pacific mackerel, the sardines. Those are animals that demand a little bit of extra oxygen as well. And then our sea otter exhibit, we have all of those active sea otters in the exhibit there, and the fish and the otters, they're all using up that oxygen. So we have something called the oxygen concentrators, which are bubbling in a little bit of extra oxygen as needed. Make sure all those animals are happy.
Oh, that's great. Hannah, we have a question. I picture there being some kind of super control bunker somewhere in the aquarium with screens and lights and pipes and gauges and stuff for team water quality. Can you tell us, what does your workstation look like? Is it an evil lair, or I should say a good person's lair of water quality instrumentation? What does it look like in your office? And maybe Chris, if there's a space in the aquarium that looks kind of like it, we could walk over there with you too.
Well, there's not quite that sort of control board in our department, but if you go down to our basement where we have all our main water board is, that's where the main water control system is for the aquarium. So that's where our main engineering department is. You can't see much of that in the Animal Crossing Museum, but you can see a few touches if you come up to the top of this exhibit and sort of zoom out. There's a few pieces of filter system you can see on the far side there. And that's starting to get into sort of some more of the world that you'll see from our side of the glass.
Is 2 buckets and a canister an accurate amount of buckets and canister as well? Let's just rank that too.
It's an essential part of our work,
Perfect.
at least.
Perfect.
Although the buckets, you never can find a bucket when you need one, so that's why there's always 2.
Exactly. It's
That's awesome.
Having those redundancies in place is essential.
Oh,
Right.
very good. Thank you, Hannah, for all that information about the upwelling. The wind is blowing here in Monterey today, and hopefully it'll continue on going, because that change to the water is also what brings in or starts growing the food that the whales and migratory animals that depend on the Monterey Bay as a pit stop on their migrations. They're really gonna, they need that wind to kickstart everything. There was a program at UC Santa Cruz called Wind to Whales, where they basically just tracked what happens when the wind starts to blow, and then how long it takes then for the food to be abundant enough for the whales to come in and start feeding. So just this physical process of the wind blowing is in part what creates the whales that we all know and love here in the Monterey Bay. And very cool to see that it does affect the aquarium directly there as well.
We're definitely seeing a lot of life out in the bay right now, especially our squid. It's squid season out there.
Oh,
so you
yeah.
got a lot of squid that are out there mating, and of course, squid are important food for humans too. So we see a lot of fishing boats out there helping collect that squid for people.
Absolutely. There's a couple of squid purse seiners off of Lovers Point right now. See them from here. Emily, what do we see in the chat there? Maybe I was just
are so many
about
wonderful
upwelling.
questions.
What are we going for here?
Well, a lot of them are more specific to what are some of the different things that you have to think about when housing different animals. We have people tuning in all over the world, and at the aquarium we tend to focus many of our main exhibits on showing off the incredible diversity of life that we have right here in Monterey Bay, but we also have other animals from all over the world inside of the aquarium. So do we have to change the water for those animals? And if so, how do we have to change it?
Oh, definitely. We have to do a lot of work for some of them. For example, our tropical fish, for example, like in our Baja or in our splash zone exhibits, they could not take the cold water we have around the Monterey Bay. Even though our cold water is full of lots of life, it's not so great for those tropical animals. So we have to start off by heating up that water and filtering it to make sure we're not sending a lot of, say, plankton or small creatures that they're not used to into their exhibits. As well as a lot of our smaller creatures, like, say, the seahorses or any of our tropical exhibits like that, we also just have to do some extra filtering for them because we can't send their water back into the Monterey Bay without having some extra treatment, too. So any water that gets used in those non-local exhibits gets filtered twice. First as it comes in, and then back as it goes back out into the bay.
Yeah, and we've got some folks here asking about Dory, because we're looking at Dory here. Where does the waste go from the aquarium? Does it go right back out into the ocean? And could Dory feasibly have wound up in a kelp forest like you see in the movie like that?
Dory would have a pretty hard time because the filter system we use is a pretty small screen. So unfortunately, Dory would probably get stuck into one of our main filter systems first and have to get rescued by an Aquarius before she could get out of the kelp forest.
Yeah, that's a deleted scene, I'm sure, from the actual thing. It's like, here, we'll remove the screen just for a plot device for the Pixar folks, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although we do have to make sure our water goes back out to the ocean at some point. And you mentioned earlier our great tide pool out and back. That's actually where the water from all the aquarium ends up going once we've filtered it all and sent it back out. It helps the water go back to a temperature so we're not just dumping in warmed water out right back into the ocean. That way it has a chance to adjust.
Yeah. And just for the folks out there, if you are wondering, this Animal Crossing stream is here to let you know what the pet peeves might be of fish biologists. What I will say about that particular movie, Finding Dory and Finding Nemo, but Finding Dory in particular is just the egregious ability for these tropical fishes to move between different temperatures of water so quickly. giant kelp needs to be at about 68 degrees for it to be able to grow. And that would certainly be like jumping into an ice bath for most people, and then certainly for a blue tang voiced by Ellen DeGeneres. So Dory going and finding her parents in the kelp forest, certainly not something that that would actually happen. And it really took me right out of that animated movie. I'm not going to lie. It really took me out of it.
Well, of course, in Pixar.
Dory is my favorite movie. Come on, are you kidding me, Patrick?
What was that?
I said Finding Dory is one of my favorite movies. Are you kidding me, Patrick?
No, I'm not saying that it's not a great movie, endearing, heartbreaking, very well put together. But yeah, I mean, just when you've got a tropical tang swimming through a kelp forest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's just a tough one. That's just, and like, it's fine. And the fact that it wasn't all centered around sea otters as well. Emily is giving me the bow of disapproval in the game.
I was just apologizing to all the people who really do enjoy that movie there.
I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm just saying that's what I was thinking. Go for it.
I wanted to jump in real quick because there are a bunch of questions while you were talking about sending the water back out to the bay, Chris and Patrick. There are a few specific questions about what we do with the wastewater. And actually, it's a great question because we do take all the water in from the bay and then we send it right back out. And as Chris mentioned before, we kind of refer to ourselves as a water treatment plant for the Monterey Bay because as we all know, the Monterey Bay Aquarium is situated right on the Monterey Bay, and that's a national marine sanctuary. And we do want to make sure that that water is kept pristine, and we actually have a lot of regulations to follow as well to make sure that we do that. So be able to send our water back out, we go through a lot of treatments, like really, really fine filtration, UV light to kill anything that might be living. As Chris mentioned earlier, we don't want to send exotic species out into the Monterey Bay. So we make sure that there are safeguards in place so that anything that we have that is, say, tropical, that doesn't need to live in the bay, is filtered out, and the eggs don't get out of our filtration and go out to the bay. So we really make sure that the water being sent back out is cleaner than when it comes in, and we have specific people dedicated to doing that. I have an entire staff member whose job is to just monitor water discharge. That's her whole job, so that's how important it is.
Yeah. And those...
And that's especially important for our sea otters, too. Like, even though they're local, we still have to take some extra steps to make sure that they're not making too much poop that's going out into the bay as well.
I mean, speaking of poop, we did have someone ask about what kind of water filters we use for our avian exhibits. Since, you know, the penguins tend to poop a lot, so do the seabirds, so do many of the exhibits that are kind of exposed to the elements, like the kelp forest exhibit and the sea otter exhibit, where you have wild birds pooping into the water as well. What does a filtration system for those exhibits look like?
You want to take this one, Hannah?
Yeah, sure. Yes, birds are a different animal. we do a lot of protein fractionation, a lot of carbon filtration on their exhibits, and something that is unique and perhaps not as widely known is our bird exhibits and our sea otter exhibits have something called a window wash system. Because of that projectile defecation, the windows can get a little bit dirty and limit the guest experience. So every once in a while, you'll see what looks like rain coming down across those acrylic windows. And what that is super treated water through something called reverse osmosis. So we're taking city water and we're removing all of those particulates and metals and things that would cause hard water or water spots. And we're washing down those windows to keep them nice and clean and allow you to see all of those cute pooping penguins and seabirds.
We've got a lot of fans of projectile defecation in the chat. Hannah, just the term itself is a really good one for punk bands or vehicles, whatever you feel like calling it out for. Projectile defecation is when birds are able to shoot their poop away from themselves. The penguins are very good at it. And that actually follows up a question of whether or not the penguins do walk through the aquarium. Yes, they do. And when you see the aviculture staff walking the penguins through the aquarium, there's usually 2 or 3 people that are in the back with rags there to clean up after penguins that might be projectile defecating there in the background. So yeah, great question there.
Yeah,
one
but
of my favorite things about projectile defecation is that we can actually track penguins from space because of their poops.
That's right.
Yes. I think I hear Hannah typing furiously away in the background there, answering questions.
Yeah.
She's
So sorry, I did mute myself.
No.
I eventually realized.
You're all
it's
good.
endearing
That's-
because I hear you typing and then I see it pop up in chat. So I'm like,
That's
"Oh,
the enthusiasm
working away."
that Team
Yeah.
Water Quality brings.
So many good questions happening in this chat right now.
Well, while we're mentioning that washdown system, maybe it's a good time to talk about some of our freshwater exhibits too.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Chris, before we head over there, I just had a quick question. I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time. You'll notice this pipe over here in the corner of the exhibit here. Can you give me a quick pipe appraisal over here? How good is this pipe doing at its job? I'll get out of the way here. A plus? How are we doing on this pipe over here?
Well, I mean, the fact you can see the pipe is kind of maybe a fault, depending on how you design your aquarium. I know our aquarium likes to make sure we hide all our pipes, so it's like you're looking into a window right into the ocean. So according to our design philosophy, probably should we put a rock or something in front of there, but maybe we can give Blathers a bit of benefit of the doubt because he seems to be building these exhibits as you put more fish in, so maybe that'll get hidden as we go.
It seems like Blathers could have spent a few more times thinking about where those pipes are located than telling everyone that he is afraid of bugs and that everyone else should be as well. Just some.
I mean,
just
you also
some
have the
feedback,
pipes
just some
over
feedback.
here and
Minor feedback, yeah.
just it's all about the aesthetics. Come on, Blathers.
Yeah, thank you for the pipe appraisal. All right, I'm done. Emily, take it away.
Well, you said freshwater, so we're heading down to the freshwater spaces here because we do have freshwater exhibits at the aquarium, so they're not quite as expansive as some of these. Our freshwater exhibits in our aquarium and game aren't as filled out as some of the other exhibits since we started a little bit later in the game.
Ooh, there's a good question in the chat here from Mad Molecular Man.
Yeah.
Does the aquarium have a closed version of the water system? And we actually do. We can, if we need to, close off all the water we're pumping in from the bay. Say there's a big algal bloom, or if there was, and heaven forbid, ever have something like an oil spill or something like that, we could turn off the water system internally for several days at the minimum. We can go probably longer than that if we had to.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And that is something, we mentioned it. I believe we almost got to it last time. Or no, we did mention it during our Zoom call after Twitch melted about those intake pipes and how sometimes the jellies can be in the bay and cause those intake pipes to be clogged by jellies. And then we have to, that's why we have two intake pipes. We have to swap over. But that closed seawater system, we don't have, it can't last for weeks and weeks on end in a closed way. So definitely one of those things about having that open water system that we're thinking a lot about. So if you happen to watch the previous stream on Monday, those intake pipes there, we really want to make sure that those are looking good all the time. Make sure that we can keep that flow of seawater going.
Yeah,
we should also mention about those intake pipes too, because we started talking about this and then the stream died last time. They do get clogged with all that life that comes in from the aquarium too.
Yes, and so you actually have to send some pigs in there to do some cleaning.
That's right. Of course, it's not a pig that like the way you might be thinking it off when you first hear the word. Pig's actually referring to a term we took from originally actually the oil industry. It's actually they started off with a bale of hay they would force through the pipes. That would clean out any of the grit and the stuff that got stuck to the sides. We have something similar, but it's made of a polystyrene. It's much denser. It looks like a little torpedo, actually, like one of those torpedo toys you throw in the pool. We stick that in the pipe. It fits the pipe perfectly. We blast water behind it, and it forces it through, and it cleans out all of those things that are growing on the sides of the pipe, like barnacles or mussels or any sort of other larval animals.
That's awesome. And a follow-up question, are there any of those pigs that are named Pumbaa, perchance, like the bigger pigs? Would that be appropriate?
I wouldn't be able to say. That's another department.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, write in suggestion cards here in chat for your preferred names of those pigs to help clean out those pipes there. We'll be sending your suggestions to someone who has no idea that we just asked you all to do that. So perfect. Awesome. Emily, can you tell us a little bit about this coastal stream? Because it's way more filled out than mine.
Oh, Well, there's a little crawdad buddy, and we got our snapping turtle there, our carp, our koi. We got our black bass and stuff in here. Looks a whole lot different than the coastal stream that we would have at the aquarium, but nevertheless, it is very much a coastal stream that we've got going on here. Lots of these animals fished out of the ponds and the rivers on our island here, our fake Monterey Bay Island in game. But at the aquarium, we have a beautiful coastal stream exhibit where we have our turtles, our little pond turtles in there. We've got a lot of smaller fishes in there, and we also have some rainbow trout. Now, for water quality purposes, bringing fresh water into our aquarium probably a little bit more complicated than just turning on the tap and filling up a bucket, right, guys?
Well, to some extent, we do actually use some city water for our freshwater systems. But the main thing is we have to make sure we get out all of those things that are added to the freshwater by the city. So especially chlorine. That's one of my other big tests I do every couple of weeks. Is I go to all of our freshwater exhibits and I test to make sure that the chlorine in the exhibit is at basically zero, and then I compare that with our actual city water, which can be quite a bit higher than that.
Yes, exactly. Some people in the chat there I saw asking what kind of turtle this is in the game. It's a snapping turtle. We have western pond turtles in our coastal stream, but in particular, this turtle that we are looking at is our snapping turtle here. We've named Snips Jazzman. So
That's
this is
Snips
Snips.
Jazzman,
This
and
is Snips Jazzman.
can keep the rhythm with all those snaps. Always keeping us on the beat.
Yeah. Excellent.
This is great. I just love seeing over in the chat that Kasie Dory Diver is just going off in the chat with all of that information. There's the stream going on with Emily and Chris and I, and then there's like a complete side quest of trying to stump Kasie in the chat. It's really quite something to behold over there.
It's going to be hard between Kasie and Hannah to stump the two of them. It's going to be pretty challenging.
All right, that's the challenge.
Here, jeez, bring it on. Bring it on.
Oh, the gauntlet has been thrown.
Thrown down.
Come on, bring it. No, I'm already getting stumped, so I don't want
Okay.
to.
We had a great question in chat there. Is it harder to maintain water quality in an exhibit like this where there's not a lot of water movement that we're seeing compared to, say, our kelp forest exhibit where you have 1,500 gallons of new seawater coming in there every single minute and exiting every single minute?
Well, it does get its own personal filter system. So all of our freshwater exhibits have their own smaller filter systems that they're attached to. And that's true for a lot of our small exhibits, and our tropical exhibits too. We'll have trickle-down filters where the water gets pumped through a biological filter, which just lets it trickle down gradually and pull out any sort of, particularly ammonia waste. So anything that's nitrogenous waste gets pulled out there. But we do have to make sure we're doing pretty regular tests. Anything like our freshwater exhibits or our tropical exhibits, anything that's not getting water directly from the bay gets tested at least once a week.
Awesome. All right.
There we go.
And in particular, we're looking for the same sort of things you would have at, say, your home aquarium. So you have your nitrates, so nitrate, nitrite, and ammonia. All three of those are connected in the nitrogen cycle, especially ammonia and nitrites. They're kind of toxic to fish and other marine life. And so we got to be really careful to make sure we're watching that to make sure we can, if we have an issue with our ammonia levels going up, we can change out that water. So basically just take half the water and put fresh water back in to try to eliminate those compounds in your water.
That's great. I have two questions in the chat I want to jump in here and answer because I think they're excellent.
Yes,
one is, do we have a microbiologist on staff for bacteria monitoring? And yes, we do. One of the members of our department in the water science team is Emma. I'm going to call her straight out, and she is our microbiologist.
Hey,
so we do a lot of microbiology testing. One, because we have things like otters that poop a lot because they do that. And we do have to follow some USDA regulations for making sure that the fecal bacteria are at acceptable levels. So we have a lot of filtration on those systems to make sure our bacteria is good for the mammals, and we test those guys by regulation once a week. But since we're extra, we do it multiple times a week in multiple different ways to make sure that those critters are safe and healthy, and also that we're not putting the bacteria back out into the bay. We also monitor plankton in the bay and do some studies with Stanford and some other universities on what's actually growing in our aquariums and in our filters too. So that's pretty cool. And to answer your question, Kelpie cane, we use IDEX for testing our fecal coliforms. Thank you for asking. So the other question I just had that I think is especially relevant is, do we do anything to address the COVID-19 things in the water? And do we have any concerns about that, or any transmission concerns between humans and animals? And that's something that we've been talking about a lot, actually, so I have no problem answering that one. We don't really have any evidence to show that it survives in saltwater. You know, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not quoting any of that, but we're taking our usual precautions to make sure people are washing their hands and that the water is treated for viruses and bacteria the same way we normally would. But I do want to call out that we've taken some extra precautions to make sure that people working with the sea otters are masked up, gloved up, and keeping both themselves and the otters very protective. So we're taking a lot of precautions to make sure that our animals who might be exposed are protected really, really above and beyond. So really proud of our staff for doing that.
Yeah.
Excellent question.
Yeah, great questions there, and thank you so much for answering those for us. All right.
Yeah, that was absolutely great. A lot of people surprised at the amount of poop talk, and I mean, this was a theme before we brought water quality on. But I think that you can just come to expect more of that on this particular broadcast, because that is something that we deal a lot with at the aquarium with a lot of the different animals. And let's see, there's another question. Chris, I don't know if you mentioned this. What is your background? How did you get into team water quality life? How does one fall into this world?
So we are actually a pretty wide mix. I personally come from a marine biology background. I did my master's with octopus, but I began volunteering at the aquarium and just was volunteering both as a guide and in husbandry and doing tours, and I finally started volunteering in the water quality department, and position opened up, and hey, they took me. So
That's
it's
awesome.
really, there's a whole range, though. We have the microbiology, I believe, with both Hannah and several other people. We've got chemistry, more strict chemistry backgrounds. I know, Kasie, you come from a whole mix yourself. Like you were biology, but also some other things, right?
Yeah, Chris, I did. I came from quite the mix. Actually did biology in undergraduate, then spent some time marine biology in Australia, then got into fish neuroscience actually in University of Hawaii. So looked into sex-changing fish over there and how their brains changed when different hormone levels change, which was really fun. Really got into then the water quality side of things, because fish are living in the water, or any animal that's living in the water depends on the water the same way that humans do on the air that we breathe. So it's a very interesting connection to study, and I hated chemistry in school. So I will go ahead and tell any of you people who are looking into a career in this type of field that you don't have to love chemistry just in school. But it was a really great connection for me to get involved with, and started getting into the water side of things and environmental water, and ended up working at the Virginia Aquarium for a little while. And that's how I touched my toe into aquariums. And Monterey was just kind of the perfect conglomeration of environmental science and chemistry and water and fish. And I landed here, and you guys are going to have to drag me out kicking and streaming.
Yeah, and of course, we have a lot of engineering people in our department too. So it's a whole mix. So really, it's mostly about kind of finding your way to the right place to begin, and then.
Yeah, and Hannah, what was your background to get into team water quality?
Yep, much like the other two, I meandered all over the place. I got my undergraduate degree in chemical oceanography, and then started grad school with boundary layer dynamics emphasis, which is basically the physics and the math of that air-sea interface. So it doesn't go very deep into the ocean, it doesn't go very high into the atmosphere. It's kind of that perfect marriage between the air and the sea.
And that's one of the most extreme environments on the planet, if you think about it, right? I've heard a few things about the microbes and other organisms that live there in this very bizarre world between water and air with all of the incoming light and the water below. Can you tell us about that boundary layer, what it's like to live between the two worlds that we find on the planet?
Yeah, something that might be kind of obvious to others, but wasn't to me when I started, is that both water and air are fluids, and they act and interact very dynamically. So they might be a little different physically and chemically, but they are both fluids. So things are moving between the air and the sea, just at immense levels and rates, which is kind of wild. But as you were saying, it's quite the dynamic boundary. It's always in flux. There are things changing on the microsecond. So it's quite interesting. Something I can get into if we want to, but I won't steal this for too long, is something I built was like a rotating tank system, which is basically a tiny little ocean, and we used fans over the top of the ocean to mimic these mesoscale ocean dynamics. And it's pretty wild to mess with the different rates of rotation of this table. You can mimic the Coriolis force, which is the rotation of the Earth we were mentioning earlier, that gives us that seasonal upwelling. So I could mess with all these different parameters to model different air and sea dynamic processes, which is pretty wild.
That's awesome. So something for the chat to think about is create your own ocean model and start to figure out how that whole thing works. It's a very interesting way of learning more about that that whole process that we have there. I did also want to call out in the chat that the tapeworm conversation that we had a few weeks ago, I don't think it was a stream ending. I think that was the beginning of our relationship on the bench of forbidden knowledge. And for those of you folks that are out there looking to look up what a botfly is, I would ask you maybe not to do that unless you have a very strong stomach. But essentially, a botfly is a fly that lays its larva under your skin, and it grows like a living pimple that pops with a bot fly that emerges from within you. So that's what a bot fly is, in case you're wondering. We learned a lot on that bench of forbidden knowledge with Dr. Ryan and Emily Grassley from the Field Museum. Chris, do you have any parasite stories from Team Water Quality you'd like to?
Well, we started off by talking a little bit about this last week with how we make sure we can train our sea bass. We train them to swim at a stretcher, so we can pull them out and give them a short freshwater bath, about 3 or 4 minutes in freshwater, because they actually get a lot of big parasites, and parasites externally, because of course we pump in all that water from the outside. Those parasites can come in, and they like settling on these big, slow-moving fish, like say our molas or our sea bass. And so every so often, to make sure those animals stay healthy, we have to treat them. And the easiest way for us to do that is actually give them that freshwater bath. Because 3 or 4 minutes in fresh water, it might be just a little bit stressful for them, but it gets rid of all those parasites, and having a lot of parasites is even more stress for an animal.
That's right. And I did want to give a shout out. I forget who it was. Identify yourself in chat if you were there, but one of you put your sea bass next to a hammock on your Animal Crossing island to mimic the stretcher training. Emily, do you remember who that was?
No, I'm trying to find it now. Because not only did we delight in your tweet about it, but we also screenshotted it because it was one of our favorite moments. So we are saving it for posterity.
Yeah, let's see if we can find that. Yeah, that was definitely one of the best things that we saw in our mentions there over on Twitter. And if you are just joining us, by the way, I just noticed we've got over 248 people that are tuning in right now. This is Monterey Bay Aquarium Plays Animal Crossing. Emily is the one running the show there with the red beanie. And I'm Rick Etz with the rain hat, because biologist Ed Ricketts never liked to get his hair wet, even when he was taking a shower. And we are joined by Team Water Quality with Chris there in the background.
Hooray.
And so we are walking around with that. All right. I tried to buy us some time, Emily. Did we find it? I can't find it on my scroll.
I'm scrolling through Slack right now, frantically.
Well,
frantically
while
searching.
we're waiting on that, I've seen a couple questions about microplastics in the water. And of course, microplastics are a big thing
Yes.
we're concerned about for ocean health in general. For the aquarium, for the most part, our filter system can catch a lot of those microplastics coming in. However, there are still even smaller particles that are much harder to get out, and those are kind of inevitable at this point. We're not really able to get them out from our systems. But again, because a lot of our animals are local, this is what they're dealing with in the waters of the bay as well. So we're kind of limited in what we can do. We can filter out as much as we can, but there's still going to be tiny, tiny microplastics that get through our filters, and that's still important. We're trying to figure out new ways to how to deal with that and how to keep our animals healthy in that way.
Yeah, and actually,
Yes.
microplastics are something that I really learned about from our Tiny Drifters little area. We did a live stream a while ago with amazing Jane Silberstein, and we were doing some. I think I found it.
And they identified themselves in chat too. It was at
Oh,
Fruit
perfect.
Bat. Yes, it was so wonderful. It was so fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah, at Fruit Bat, thank you so much for that. Here, I'll send it to Team Water Quality over our web call here, so you can actually see that there. But yeah, just the microplastics. We were doing a little plankton live stream where we're looking at eggs of something under a microscope, and then there was this very long thread in the water, and I was like, oh, what kind of animal is that? And Jane mentioned, oh, that's probably actually some fleece from your jacket. And those little microplastics that can come off there. So you may know that if you have a fleece jacket, there are bags that you can buy that you can wash your fleece in to help remove or to help capture a majority of that microplastic waste. But that is something that people discovered recently with upcycled plastic bottles that become garments that they can shed off these microplastics. And that's something, Krista, you're mentioning that you are looking into for in the aquarium. And we also wanted to shout out that the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, MBARI, and researchers at the aquarium have done research on that microplastic in our backyard and have found that there is a high concentration of microplastics in the Monterey Bay, but in the deep sea especially, because the biological pumps that take food from the surface and sink it out into the deep are also doing the same mechanism basically with plastics that might be in the ocean. So that is another reason why the aquarium does so much work trying to limit plastic production of single-use plastics, those plastics that you use and throw away. Long-term plastics like PVC are integral for an aquarium to function. So we're not talking about plastic in general. It's those single-use plastic bits that we use and discard. They don't go away. We're on a finite planet after all. And a lot of that plastic, even if it gets recycled, upcycled, whatever, a lot of it can stick around long enough to become debris in the ocean. So microplastics, teeny tiny, small fragments sloughed off from other things there. And that is some research that we've been doing here in the Monterey Bay to see where it's at. So that's why we always appreciate your help in helping pass legislation that helps limit production of these wasteful plastics and also limiting your plastic in your everyday life. Okay, I'm off my upcycled plastic soapbox.
Nope. Love it. It's a great
Okay,
soapbox
perfect.
to be on. I saw Chris running over towards the next section of the aquarium, though.
Yeah, I figured it'd be a good time to come over here towards our open sea exhibit.
Yeah. It's
That's
really
one of our big keystones at the aquarium.
Yeah.
All right, joining on our way over.
So of course, one of my favorite things about open sea is the sea turtles, of course, and that's something that might be a little complicated to do, given as the in the Animal Crossing aquarium, since you happen to have a lot of turtles as actual villagers and NPCs. So you might not see a sea turtle in here, but that's one of my favorite things in our open sea tank. But they tend to give me a little trouble because when I'm trying to stick my temperature probe in to sample our open sea tank, they'll come over and investigate, and they're pretty mouthy. Having no hands, you got to use your mouth to feel things out, and so they'll come over and start biting at my my probe there.
That's a really adorable. I know it's probably really frustrating, but that's really adorable. Oh.
It's so great.
It's one reason we can't actually send the scuba divers into that exhibit when they have the turtles.
Yes.
The turtles actually have to go out to their little roof spa we have for them, so the turtles don't come over and start nipping
Yeah.
at any hoses or air tubes.
Chris, I was a volunteer diver at the aquarium before we kind of realized that we really can't have the turtles in there with the divers. And I just remember the turtles kind of looking at you and just wanting to kind of move you out of the way from whatever you're cleaning in there. So yeah, the turtles and the sunfish always very curious. The turtles just inquisitive as to whether or not there was a new plaything in you being in there. One thing I did want to ask you, this is actually a legitimate work question here. I've gone diving in the open sea exhibit to clean, and on the sides of the windows, every so often, there are these bacterial mats that will be there, largely from the amount of fish biomass, fish poop that is coming out of the animals there. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it was that I was cleaning off the sides of those windows there? I've always kind of wondered. There's little anemones and little things in there, but what was that film of stuff that I might be cleaning off there? Do you know?
Well, that's going to be like you said, it's a big colony of bacteria. It's possibly going to be cyanobacteria, possibly some other stuff. I don't know. I'm not a microbiologist myself, so I don't know too many of the species we'd have.
Okay.
But what you're seeing there is going to be a biofilm. So basically, it's a whole layer of these bacteria that are going to grow where there's lots of food that's available, and that biofilm there starts making these interconnected excretions, which help protect them from things that would be trying to attack the colony from the outside. So they sort of spread out. They can make this whole sort of layer of bacteria. And these biofilms are actually pretty cool. A lot of animals actually use biofilms. Our fish actually have a form of biofilm in their mucus. They will actually culture bacteria through their mucus layers they have for protection on the outside, and that biofilm actually helps protect them from other more harmful bacterials.
Wow.
Wow.
So you're seeing all of these sort of it's almost a little micro biome, a little tiny ecosystem there from those bacteria forming that.
Okay, because yeah, I just remember cleaning it, and it was pretty much like smearing cold bacon grease on a pan, trying to remove that biofilm. Obviously, we end up getting it off, but something that you don't see growing in the kelp forest exhibits. In the kelp forest exhibits, you're dealing with a lot of the algae growing on the side. So very fascinating. Thank you for the information about.
Yeah,
about
a lot of that is because,
happened.
of course, we keep our lighting different exhibits, and that open sea exhibit isn't exposed to the sunlight. The
That's
kelp
right.
forest exhibit is one of our few exhibits that's actually put out to the sun, and that means that we have a lot more algae. That's why we have divers in there pretty much every day to help clean up during our normal operating times, help make sure those windows stay nice and clear. We have a good view the whole time.
Oh, that's awesome. We have a lot of people here in the chat saying that in their microbiology, I assume, micro class, that they were swabbing fish for bioluminescent bacteria and that they made art with them. That's amazing.
That's so cool.
I wish I took that class. I didn't take that class.
Yeah, no.
That's really cool. And actually, with some of the deep sea work we've been doing, we actually were able to culture some of that bioluminescent bacteria with our microbiologists in the lab and got really familiar with some of the artwork. We couldn't create it because I'm not that talented, but yeah, it's definitely a really interesting thing. You guys should Google those images if you want to see them. It's fascinating.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, we also had the suggestion to send some of that film, the film growing on the windows, over to Hank Green, the Journey to the Microcosmos team, which I think would be super cool.
That would be.
That'd be a great idea. Yeah, we've worked with Hank in the past, so maybe we should reach out to him again, see if he wants to look at that under the crazy microscopes that they have.
We should. I think it would be a tuna fun to do that for sure. Sorry, it's been a few since we had a pun, and we're back, baby. All right.
We got to Marlene into them, you know?
Oh, there it is. We're going to pack them together closer than that anchovy school.
Hey.
Let's go. Oh, and by the way, Bojack Horse Mackerel and the boys
Yes.
is here still with everybody there. We should point that out. Kasie and Hannah and Chris. Chris, you probably are aware, but Kasie and Hannah, in case you're wondering, the lone mackerel there on the side, that is Bojack Horse Mackerel and the boys there. And you can see the fan art there by Miss Jazz Butts over on Twitter, who sent that to us. So I had to make sure we called out Snips Jazzman. There's Bojack Horse Mackerel.
Yes.
Oh, that's good stuff.
I love how Nintendo managed to include the schooling fish in this exhibit because they're some of my favorite
Yeah.
parts of our open sea tanks.
Is there anything, I know that we talked a little bit before about, for some of our schooling fish, like the sardine roundabout, we're increasing the oxygen level in that exhibit for them. Are you doing the same inside the open sea for our school of sardines?
Well, you do have to do some of that. More of what we use in our open sea is we have to have some really big filters called fractionation filters. They're the two biggest filters we have in the aquarium, at least that I ever work with. And they're about 12 feet tall. They're good size, but they're very similar to what you'd use on a smaller protein filter for a home aquarium, where you're really trying to catch that sort of sea foam. We mentioned this a little bit on the last stream, or in the chat of the last stream, where you've got the fractionation filters which trap all of the protein, especially. So a lot of poop or extra food or things like that, which are getting either not eaten by the fish or being excreted by the fish. And so those get caught in those big fractionation filters, which help reduce the load on some of our other filters later down, like our sand filters and things like that.
That's awesome.
That's
yeah.
very cool. Emily, I just wanted to point out that there's something that you may want to mention too. We've got a lot of new viewers since the last time we talked about this. There are people currently asking in the chat about clupeid FRTs in chat if you wanted to let folks
topic.
know what's going on there.
Yeah, so for anyone who is tuning in and hasn't heard about one of my favorite scientific discoveries out there related to these small schooling fish, and in particular, if you've ever been to the aquarium before, or if you've watched the open sea cam before, and you've seen our big, beautiful school of sometimes upwards of 20,000 Pacific sardines all swimming around together, every now and then you'll see what looks like a whole bunch of tiny little bubbles kind of escaping from the school and rising up to the surface. And scientists were very curious about this behavior of seeing these little bubbles escaping from fish, and it turns out that in the clupeid family of fishes, those include sardines and herrings, they did a study with herrings and found out that these herrings were communicating with each other through expelled gas through an anal pore. So they were squeezing gas out of their anal pore, and they have these special sensory organs on the sides of their bodies that they can feel that kind of movement, that pressure change, that, something happening in the water around them. So it was how they're communicating with each other. So they gave it the very abbreviated name fast repetitive ticks, or FRTs, because these fish are communicating by farting. And it's the most delightful piece of science in recent history, in my opinion. So anytime you're watching the school of sardines in the open sea, and you see those little bubbles escaping from them, those are, it's not true fish farts, because it's not coming from their digestive tract or anything like that, but they're little fish farts. They're squeezing out gas through an anal pore and talking to each other. So they're talking to each other with farts.
That's amazing. And Emily, I just received a meme about parrotfish excretions as well. Keeping in the theme of things going on at the tail end of fishes. I'm gonna send this your way. It's from Kawaii Cookie. Kawaii Cookie. I'll send it to you here over our chat. But this is really pretty wonderful as well. Here, hold on. Let me get this to you. All right. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Okay, keep talking. I'll get you that meme here. Don't worry about it. It's almost there.
Well, while we're talking about some kind of cool water system stuff we have, I've always, of course, loved the deep sea stuff we have down here on the other side of the exhibits.
Okay.
Yeah, go talk about the deep sea.
I'm going to run over there. There we go.
So while we don't have a deep sea exhibit currently, we have had some in the past, and we are still experimenting with some deep sea animals. For example, one of my favorites, and I'm hoping this shows up in Animal Crossing at some point, is going to be the flapjack octopus, or even the vampire squid. Both of those would be pretty awesome creatures to see in there.
They would be, yes. I
An
would love
exhibit
to
like this.
see a flapjack octopus inside of Animal Crossing. That would be so great.
But of course, deep sea animals have a lot of different concerns you got to think about, especially fish. Like Bother's doing a lot of good work keeping these fish down here in these exhibits because fish especially have air bladders. And those air bladders can cause some real complications because the pressure of the ocean keeps them squeezed down really good if you're down deep. But if you bring up one of those fish to the surface, that air bladder then no longer has that pressure pushing it down. It can expand, actually cause a lot of damage. We have the same problem with things like rockfish in our aquarium. And so when you bring up rockfish or things like that, you got to repressurize them. And we have special little repressurization chambers we'll stick them in to help them squeeze back down, which we can gradually release over time. Things like the octopus, though, or some of the deep sea jellyfish we might look at, a lot of those don't have those air pockets inside. And so you've got to make sure, well, you don't have to quite take as many of the same things. Our cousin institution, the Mbari, has helped us with a lot of that research and helps collect from the deep sea and bringing up those really cool, often red colored jellyfish or comb jellies or things like that.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, and you know, for those of you who've been watching this Animal Crossing stream from the start, we started out with an oarfish, which was really amazing, king of the herring there in front of you, which is a deep sea fish that you do find out here off of California as well. And then the fish that you see right there in front of you, that is known as the barrel eye fish, which was not discovered by the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, but filmed for the first time with its transparent dome that goes over its green eyes. And the green eyes point straight up through that dome, looking up to try to find, this was an update that we got from the Mbari scientists. It's thought that maybe that dome acts as a shield to help protect the eyes of the barrel eye as it tries to find siphonophores, which are whip-like jellies. So basically a colony of jellyfish all connected together that look just like a very long string, a ropey whip of doom for many animals, and that the barrel eye then comes up below them and grabs little bits of food that might be dangling from the siphonophore. The reason that the eyes are green is that they're probably filters to help them find bioluminescent light. We talked about bioluminescence with Dr. Steve Haddock from Mbari. Bioluminescence is when the animals make their own lights, and it's often in blue-green colors that are slightly different from the blue that might be downwelling from the surface. And so those filters knock out any background light, and then they're able to see the barrel eye is able to see where bioluminescent light or other shadows of animals might be above them. So that's the barrel eye there, the small one going around. And then the coelacanth we're really excited about. And shout out to Emily for the epic fishing adventures that Emily had to go down to get that coelacanth. One thing to notice about coelacanths, everybody, it knows how it's swimming. See how it's kind of it's not swimming like the barrel eye is, or like the oarfish is either. I mean, the oarfish very, very distinctive, but notice how it's kind of swimming through the water, much like you might kick, one arm, then another, and then a leg and the other leg, and then you have the tail end of the fish. That's because coelacanths are lobed fin fish. They're a sarcopterygian. And so unlike other fishes, it has basically 4 limbs that it uses to sort of paddle through the water, one leg, one arm at a time. And coelacanths are more like us than they are other fishes. And so that if you ever hear that, people are fish, land-based tetrapods are fish, so that would be, lizards and birds and everything on land is technically a fish. That would be because in the evolutionary tree, you have this sarcopterygian, this lobed fin fish that basically is a relative of all of us that wind up on land with those 4 limbs there set up. And a coelacanth is more like us than it is like other things that we call fish. So you're seeing on the right side 2 actinopterygians, the ray-finned fishes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got a sarcopterygian. You've got the 3 of us, Chris, Emily, and myself, and our coelacanth friend right there. And one thing that we share together with the coelacanth and us is that we have enamel on our teeth. Shout out to the enamel on our teeth animals. That's what we all share in this grand evolutionary pathway that we have gone on together. So anyway, that's the coelacanth. It's there. We found it. Congrats, Emily. Let's get some W's in the chat for Emily and her coelacanth. Everybody, let's get some W's.
It was a labor of love getting that coelacanth there. Now I saw a couple of people asking in chat. Oh, thank you for all the W's.
Look at all those
Look at all
dubs.
those dubs.
Yes.
But I saw a couple of questions in the chat about some of the deep sea fish in game. So we're going to briefly do some pro gamer tips with Emily right now. I saw a lot of people saying that they've caught a whole bunch of oarfish, but never the barrel eye in games. So if you too want to curate your own deep sea exhibit like this in Animal Crossing and nerd out about all of the Sarcopterygians and amazing deep sea actinopterygians like that barrel eye. The barrel eye is going to be a really tiny shadow in game when you're fishing. It's the same size shadow basically as the mackerel. So don't walk right by those tiny little shadows. You want to throw your line in there when you see those tiny shadows, and they're only at night. That's how they're differentiating between some of the deep sea fish there. So nighttime, small shadow, you're going to find a barrel eye that way. The coelacanths there if you want your very own Sarcopterygian in Animal Crossing. You have them in your neighbors that you have there on land already, since we are all Sarcopterygians inside. But those ones, you have to wait until it's raining. So anytime it's raining on your island, whether it's daytime or nighttime, head out, and one of the large shadows is going to hopefully be a coelacanth. It took us a couple of hours of playing on stream and failing. It took me a couple of hours off stream I had some of our coworkers over helping me out making fish bait and just going crazy for hours
You will be
trying to
catching
find
a lot of sea bass.
coelacanth. Yeah, you'll catch a lot of sea bass. You'll get very disheartened, but I finally caught this one. I think it was like 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I woke up, it was still raining on our island, and happened to walk out in front of where the aquarium formerly was on our island next to the beach, and the very first catch of that night was a coelacanth. So
And I'd like to
yeah.
say, I'd like to say that my theory is that Blathers finally went to bed after trying to disrupt us, and that's when all of the coelacanths were able to come over. That's my
Blame Blathers.
Yeah,
for everything.
blame
Absolutely.
Blathers. I saw someone before say that, yeah, Blathers just needs to hire Flick to work as either an
That's
intern
right.
or, paid position would be nice instead of the museum, so that Flick can work with all the bugs, and then Blathers can focus on his fossils and his fish, and he'll be a happy bird
Yep.
that way,
Absolutely. We've got Kasie coming in on the chat. She wanted to mention a little bit. So we've got, amazing fishing skills from Emily to bring us the oarfish and the barrel eye and the coelacanth. But then some of the water in here is going to be very, very special water, very complex, very expensive
Yes.
water to produce. And Kasie, you wanted to touch on low oxygen specifically in
Yeah.
deep sea environments. Can you tell us about that?
So my question for Blathers is, how is he handling all this low oxygen in that water? Because those are some pretty awesome looking fish. But one of the really interesting things on deep sea animals is that the oxygen levels down deep in the ocean are not the same as they are at the surface. They can be almost down to 4 to 5% of what the oxygen you might see in the water at the surface is, which presents a unique challenge for aquarium folks who are trying to keep these animals nice and healthy and display them for people to see. And what we're working on right now in our team, something that we're really proud of, somebody in the chat asked what we're really proud of in our team with the water quality, and this is one of those things. We're working on a really novel way to bring the oxygen levels down in the water so we can keep the deep sea animals healthy and be able to put animals in the aquarium that we wouldn't have been able to previously. And it's a really complex system. So we've got to pull out the oxygen out of the water without increasing other gases in the water, which sounds easy. It's not. I've got a really great team of people working on that, as well as decreasing the pH. So pH of the water can be a little lower in the deep sea than it would be at the surface. So, we're bringing in our water from close to the surface, 50 feet down. So that doesn't necessarily match what might be happening in the deep sea or in the canyon right off of our back deck where some of these animals are coming from. So we're working on using some really cool membranes. I don't want to spoil the surprise too much because teaser alert, there's going to be more of this coming out soon. But yeah, there's some really interesting work that we're doing to try to match these fish's actual habitats so we can keep them all healthy. And yeah, that involves making the oxygen super, super low. Go figure, animals don't need all the oxygen that we might in the air, and getting the pH actually lower when usually we try to keep the pH up.
Yeah, and the
it's a really-
temperature too, of course. We're dropping it down to about 4 degrees C if we're having to have animals like that around.
Exactly. Yeah, the temperature is a huge thing. So when you're talking about expensive, Patrick, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yes, the chilling that water down is a real big effort. So keeping that water, the Monterey Bay is cold on its own, but the deep sea is way colder. So bringing that water down to a level of temperature that the animals are comfortable with is a lot of work, and it's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, we've got also someone mentioning that they went on a research cruise to study the OMZ back in the day. Whenever I see OMZ, oxygen minimum zone, but whenever I see OMZ typed out like that, all I can think is OMZ, how bizarre. I hope that reference doesn't age me too much, and if anyone recognizes that. OMC, anyone? How bizarre? No?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. Moving
Oh.
on to the other comment. The other comment that I saw was what replaces the oxygen if you remove it? Just more water. And that's actually something that I heard from one of our aquarists, Matt, where he was talking about this deoxygenated water that you're working on. It kind of becomes this super magnet for other gases and other things there, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's a great question. And yes, in a way it can be. So a lot of times the way the oxygen is removed from water is pushing nitrogen into the water to just displace the oxygen. And that leads to more nitrogen being there. So a lot of what we are trying to do is actually not replace the oxygen with nitrogen and just pull the oxygen out. So that does lower what's called the total gas pressure in the water. So all of those gases as a total in the water are decreased because we're pulling all of that oxygen out. So I guess, yeah, you could argue there's a little bit of an increase in water density because we're removing some of the gases, but in reality, nothing's really replacing the oxygen. We're just pulling it out of the water so that all the total gas pressure is decreased and there's not as much oxygen in the water. And then we're adjusting for other chemical parameters as we need to. So. Yeah, and
That's awesome.
I saw a comment in the chat about biochemists running reactions to add nitrogen gas to remove oxygen. So exactly, just what I was just saying. A lot of times you can remove push nitrogen into the water, and that pushes the oxygen out. We're just not sure of some of the effects that the extra nitrogen could have on the animals. So we're trying to, again, be a little extra and make sure that we don't add extra stress. So we're making sure that we're not introducing more nitrogen as well and just pulling the oxygen out itself.
Yeah. That's great.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So cool.
Yeah, you don't think about, I've been working at aquariums for a while now, and I was always very just focused on, how do you find the animal and then bring it in, as if that was kind of the main part of it. But you have to then create an environment where the animal feels comfortable. And so then I would think, you got to add a little bit of kelp or some sand or something that it's used to, still thinking about the biology of the animal. But I just think it's fascinating, all of the things that you have to think about the physical medium, about the actual water that you're in. We're so fortunate to be next to this Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, where the water is pretty much as pristine as one can expect along our coast after so many decades, centuries of use of that bay. The bay is still relatively looking good there. But really just fascinating how much you have to think about even that water doing well in our exhibits. Thank you so much for all of that knowledge there. Really amazing stuff. I'm learning so much on this stream.
Yeah, and at Fruitbat just brought up another issue. I guess the fish farting could replace some of the gases. So I think we're going to need to calculate some things. Gosh darn it.
Just fewer bean burrito deliveries on DoorDash, and should be just fine, I think.
Another kind of cool question there for our deep water tanks clean the same way as other ones. So likely no, you won't have to clean the deep water tanks as often because there's not going to be as much light, and so you're not going to see as much growing on the windows there. Especially because we'd likely be running a lot of filters to filter out a lot of those algae from the water before it goes into our deep water exhibits, because they have these special treatments we have to give them.
Very cool. Awesome.
Pat-
Emily, how we doing on time? We're hitting the
Yeah.
hour 30 mark here. It is
Yes, we
5:03 p.m.
Hitting that end of the day there. Patrick, did you want me to put up that meme that you sent before?
I just
Or did you or were you just sharing the joy with me?
I was sharing the joy. If we wanted to put it up on stream,
Okay.
we this we might have to go back to the tropical fish area before we bring it
Oh,
up. Should we do that?
that's
if
true.
you have any marine memes that you feel like sending to us,
We're
feel
always
free.
fans of a good marine meme.
But here, let's run back over to the tropical reef exhibit area. Oh, we're going all the way around. Here we go. I ran into the wall. Don't look at that on the stream.
Pro
I
gamers.
really hope they add more invertebrates to the museum
That's
as we
true.
go.
Yes.
I noticed you didn't manage to catch your sea angels, but those are some pretty cool little snail creatures.
Yes, we were a couple of days late to catch all of the march animals in here. So, but tomorrow,
Okay, so
tomorrow's a brand new set of insects and fishes that we can catch.
yes,
because-
and maybe now is a good time to just plug that we are going to have another
Yes.
Animal Crossing stream on Monday. Emily, you want to let the folks know what we're going to be doing then?
Yes, so because we have a new drop of bugs and fishes happening tomorrow, we are inviting the beetle guy from the Smithsonian, Dr. Floyd Lockley, on Monday to talk
Ooh.
about a whole bunch of the new beetles that are coming to the Northern Hemisphere starting tomorrow. So between tomorrow and Monday, I will frantically be catching all of the beetles that I can so that we have some beetles to talk about with Dr. Floyd. So he'll be joining us. I think we're going to be doing an earlier stream that day. I believe it's going to be 1 o'clock Pacific time that day because he's over on the East Coast over at the Smithsonian. So we're gonna try and do it a little bit earlier so that he isn't up late at night to talk about Animal Crossing bugs with us. But he'll be here. So if you like beetles or if you want to know more about beetles or just more about bugs in general, last time we had a great time with Dr. Ryan Gott talking about bugs. So it's sure to be a great time this time as well. Who knows? He might have some 12-foot long tapeworm stories too, Patrick.
I hope so. I hope that we have things that leave people floored from the parasite that they have internalized, the brainworm that they'll get from listening to that stream. Okay, so just if you are going to send us a meme, make sure that it's your own meme. We appreciate that. Make sure to
Yes.
credit the original content creator there. Thank you for that reminder there in the chat there,
Yes,
Sarah.
yes.
But okay, this is a meme coming from, I believe, Katie. Yep, Katie, who sent it to us. And the fact of the day about that particular thing is that parrotfish are an integral part of coral reef communities. They have an extremely hard beak that they use to crunch on corals, and then they sift through the corals and digest the insides of the coral, those zooxanthellae and the coral polyps themselves. And then after it's gone through the parrotfish, they poop out an extremely fine grain coral calcium carbonate sand that ends up becoming those white sandy beaches that many people spend thousands of dollars to go and travel to in a pre-COVID world to go sit on and enjoy that beautiful white sand. So all of the white sand beaches that you have in atolls around the world, those beautiful tropical island paradises that you probably are imagining, that is millions and millions and millions of years of parrotfish poop deposits there. Extremely fine calcium carbonate sand there. And so with that in mind, Emily, if you feel like pulling up the particular meme that Katie sent to us that we thought was adorable.
Absolutely.
To go along with the sea bass in the hammock.
The sea bass in the
Bojack
hammock.
horse mackerel. There it
Bojack
is.
horse mackerel. This one has now joined our saved memes on our laptops here.
Saved memes. I parrotfish. I got no teeth. But worry
yeah.
not. I still crunch reef. I munch the corals with sturdy beak. White sand beaches. I excrete.
It's beautiful.
Really something to live by, to consider, and to enjoy about the amazing world of the nitrogen cycle that these animals go through, the byproducts of them, and that Chris and Team Water Quality spend so much time dealing with at the aquarium, dealing with all of the poop and making sure that that water quality is as good as it can be. All right.
Absolutely. And you too one day can fuse your thousands of teeth into a hard beak and poop out white. Wait, no, that's not the moral? Oh, okay.
That's not the moral.
Just
Okay.
remember, someday your poop may be just as valuable as a parrotfish's.
Oh,
That's right.
there it is.
Oh, Chris, thanks for bringing
Either
it
it's
home.
white sand beaches, coprolites, you name it.
Talk about a blessing. May your stools become coprolites is really something very exciting. Emily, if you want to take down the meme, and then I can emote with the rest of everyone here. Yeah,
There we
here
go.
I am. Woo! Okay, Emily, what do you got for us?
Well, it has been a wonderful Thursday afternoon here, hanging out with Team Water Quality, talking about everything under the sun and inside of an aquarium when it comes to taking care of the water that sustains all of the animals, both here on our fictional Monterey Bay Aquarium Island Museum, but also at our own museum, our own aquarium, while we can't be there physically with all of you right now. It was a delight to have you here in Animal Crossing with us this afternoon. Chris, Hannah, Kasie, thank you all so much. Can we get a whole bunch of W's and thank yous in the chat for Team
Yes,
Water
thank you.
Quality?
Thank you so much for having us. We're going to work hard to make sure we keep the aquarium looking good for when we can have people back to visit us.
Yes, and we
Thank you
look
so much,
forward
Chris.
to
We look
that
forward
day.
to doing maybe another Team Water Quality stream here. Thank you, Kasie and Hannah, as well. If you're still on the call, thank you for being there.
You guys,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. Everybody in the chat is awesome, and look at all the W's. And
Woo!
woo!
If you'll have us back, we'll definitely join in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had so many amazing questions in the chat. Such engaged questions there. We love it. We love our
And even
chat.
if we're not on the call, we'll definitely be in the chat chatting every now and then when we can be when we're not working.
Oh, sounds
Well,
great.
we look forward to seeing you in there. Yeah, so I think that's going to kind of wrap up our stream for this afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, morning, night. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back on Monday at 1 o'clock with another Animal Crossing New Horizons stream with Dr. Floyd Lockley from the Smithsonian to talk about beetles and bugs and all those delightful things. Patrick and I will be around in the chat if you have any questions on any of those live cam streams that we do every single day, Monday through Friday. But for now, we'll say goodbye and just again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. In these very strange times, we just like to remind everyone to remember to be kind to yourself and especially to be kind to each other. And we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.